You're listening to the Dibbly-Dobbly podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. So, Mark, as I do with all my guests that I've interviewed on the podcast, I like to take them back to when they first got into cricket. It's been fascinating to listen to people's memories on how they got into the game. So let's go back to the beginning, Mark. Growing up in the UK, what are your memories of playing cricket?
Well, I remember playing cricket at primary school. So as I guess, 5, 6, 7-year-old with the plastic bats and the orange wind balls, and just really loving doing that during the summer, and then winter or autumn would be for football or soccer, as you'd call it in Australia.
Yeah.
But as I got older, I found that my interest in cricket just kept on developing. And as I reached probably my later teens, football became less of an interest and cricket really just sort of dominated. But for me as an English person, early 90s when I was getting into cricket, unfortunately, there appeared to be no chance of winning the Ashes, which was thing. But
Yeah.
I used to love those home series where we'd play the Cornell Insurance Test matches against New Zealand, South Africa, Pakistan, India, and of course Australia as well. And watching them on telly, and then going into the schoolyard and trying to be Philip de Freitas or Graham Hick or Michael Atherton or whoever it was. So have such clear memories, even though that is now about 30 years ago.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's how everyone gets into the game when you watch those early series on TV or played in primary school. That's how I got into the game myself in primary school. I remember those orange bats as well, with tennis balls and, and the orange stumps. It's just great memories to have. And that's why we love the game. That's why we get into the game. So that's great to hear your story, how you got into the game. Seeing that we're talking about mental health today and opening up, I know you've been through your own personal journey yourself, and you've been open with that. Can you tell us how that all started? You know, the battles that you had with your own mental health, and also since starting opening up, has that made you improve your mental health better since you started the organization?
Well, yes. First of all, I think the origins of mental ill health in myself go back to my time at university, or quite possibly before that. But the real strongest symptoms came around when I was coming towards the end of my time at university. And the most difficult thing was, this was 2007, and as a topic, mental health was not widely discussed, and illness certainly was something that and I'd imagine lots of people in similar positions to me, wouldn't have found possible to talk about, because of the worry of how it will be judged, what that would mean for people's view of you, and also just a misunderstanding of what the symptoms meant. So I found myself being completely consumed by this inescapable low mood. So not just over the course of a day or two, but it went on for a fortnight, 3 weeks and longer, so much so that the things that I love, like cricket, like my studies at the time with friends, I just couldn't find any joy from. And I got to the point where I found that was just normal, and I thought that was the way that life should be, and felt that that was something that almost I deserved. And as a result, withdrew quite a lot from people. And I think the thing I look back on now as a direct contrast with how it is today is that there was a mixture of two things. One, I did a fantastic job at concealing it. Because if I was in public situations, I would try my best to just act like everything was okay, maybe reinforce some distracting behaviors, like making sure I was cracking jokes, or I was right in the mix of it, drinking and socializing, so that people wouldn't have a chance to see. But I also look and think there was definitely times where there might have been signs to other people, and it's sad to look back and think that people around me just wouldn't have had an understanding either, to be able to put their hand out and say, is there anything we can do? And then quite a while later, when I knew a lot more about this through opening up, I had another particularly bad episode, 2015. But the thing there was the conversation had moved on to a large extent. I'd been a lot more open about mental health and mental ill health, particularly with the experience of opening up cricket, if not talking about my own experience. So then when I felt that I still felt alone, I still felt I couldn't share it with anyone, I do look back and think then one of the issues was that I made it pretty clear I did literally ask for help at one point and got very little back. So it made me think even more about what reasons were there for that. Was it that people just didn't care? I think that's probably too simplistic. I think it's that perhaps they didn't know how to help and maybe were a bit reluctant to get involved in something they had little idea of. So to answer the second question, I think my understanding and my ability to manage my mental health or my mental fitness now has just come on so much so it's unrecognizable from all that time ago, knowing that there are things I can do proactively, not waiting for there to be a problem before I consider what's going on with my mind and the health of it. So now I can see things coming a bit sooner. I know what I can rely on as things day to day that can generally help build good mental health, and also be perhaps a bit more realistic about things. And a big thing for me was always having unrealistic expectations, wanting everything to go right or wanting certain things from other people when you can't control those things. And it's a bit of a cliche, but concentrating on the things that I can influence has given a greater peace of mind, which I think you can only achieve when you are healthy enough to be able to consider what's going on around you.
Yeah. It's quite interesting to hear your journey and knowing that you're at peace, well, sort of at peace with it, but it comes and goes, doesn't it? I think you described it once. It's like mental health is like a continuum. It always continues on. It doesn't really stop. It doesn't really go away. It's just there. So you just have to manage it. And yeah, it's great that you're on the right track and doing some good stuff with opening up. Talking about opening up, I mentioned it briefly in the introduction, how you started opening up. Just tell us what made you want to start the organization and what are some of the programs and some of the courses that you do in terms of educating cricketers on mental health and suicide prevention?
Well, it started, the campaign started itself in 2014, but the origin of it goes back to 2012. So I play at a club in Liverpool in the UK called Sefton Park, and I had a friend there who had been through a lot of difficulties in terms of his health. And we reached a point in December of 2012 where Alex, my friend, took his own life. And in some ways, looking back, that was a complete shock, a complete surprise. But in others, a lot of the signs were there that this could have happened. So initially, amongst all of the questions and the uncertainty and the grief that people were experiencing, I kept on thinking that there was something about this that was preventable, or at least could be discussed more, because initially the people, me and my teammates, sort of, I guess, felt that this was such a one-off. It was incredible, impossible to fathom. But then with a bit of reading and research, it became clear that actually this isn't just a one-off. It happens all too frequently. And in the UK, it's the biggest killer of men under the age of 45. So that then planted a seed in my head that's like, right, this is something that surely needs to be talked about more. So the initial idea was just to go to the clubs in the local region and just tell them about what had happened and what was available, or what is available for them to seek support. And after a summer of doing that, I felt like the itch hadn't been quite scratched, and there was a bit more interest from people a bit further afield about having these discussions. So now we're in 2022. The core of what goes on hasn't really changed. It is still about where possible, going out to cricket clubs, whether that be in person or online, as we've had recently, and explaining a bit about what happened to Alex, but more and more talking about the positives around mental health and saying, in actual fact, we shouldn't just wait for there to be a problem before we discuss it. And cricket, as a sport which has so much linked to the mind and mindset and mental skills, we can actually use the sport as a vehicle to promote better mental health. And that includes things like the teamwork element, the communication, the community, as well as skills like mindfulness and meditation to improve your focus and concentration for batting and bowling, but also to help you switch off day to day. So as time has gone on, it's just, for me, appeared that if cricket wasn't already there, it would have to be invented to do this important thing of making people realize that their mind and their mental health isn't just something which they should think about when there's a problem. Just like physically, we're generally proactive. We realize moving around a bit more is good for us, and what we put in our body is important. So for the mind as well, just helping people by starting a conversation to work out what works for them to look after their minds and those around them.
Yeah. And that's brilliant. What you're doing with opening up is great. And many cricketers are benefiting from you and what the team's doing in educating people on good mental health and positive mental health. So it's fantastic. Hi, everyone. If this discussion on mental health has raised any questions about your mental health and well-being, please seek help from the various organisations in your country. If you live in Australia or the UK, please check out the links in the description.